Hello, all the Commander players out there. How are we doing today? I am doing great. This is Max Nolan recording a video for MagicStronghold.com. It's our second issue of Commanding Knowledge. Today we're going to be talking about underplayed cards in Commander. These are cards that people might not know about, people might not think about, that are actually surprisingly powerful for how little they get played. So we're going to be covering white, blue, and black today, the top 10 underplayed cards. So first one, I've got Student of Warfare here. This isn't necessarily just a student, but more an approach to playing white in Commander, which is cheap, aggressive creatures. Things like Student of Warfare, things like Isamaru, things like Savannah Lions. Early aggression is a very underrated strategy in Commander, because people are always playing big spells, so you don't think about playing small guys. But it's actually really amazing how much advantage you can gain by dealing anywhere between 10 and 20 damage to your opponents early on. I have a Geist of Saint Traff deck that's really aggressive, and even though I play it in multiplayer, it's pretty successful because I'm capable of basically starting the game at 20 life higher than my opponents. Second card, I've got two of them here, is Tithe and Gift of Estates. Both of them do functionally similar things. They let you search your library for extra lands if your opponent has more lands than you. Land tax is obviously a very popular card in Commander, and it's very well known, sees a lot of play. These two are definitely underrated. Even though they're not as good as land tax, you're only allowed to play one. So having these two pseudo extra copies are pretty strong. You know, Tithe is basically 1 mana, draw 2 cards. And Gifts of Estate, basically 2 mana, draw 3 cards. Next is, I've got Syndic of Tithes here. Again, this doesn't apply just to this card. It applies to anything with Extort. And the great thing about the cards with Extort is that most of them are commons or uncommons. I've actually got a pretty strong black-white budget Commander deck. Just uses all the Extort cards and some life gain stuff and some prison stuff. So putting more Extort cards in your deck is obviously beneficial, and that is because in multiplayer you're extorting from each player, so you're, dealing 1 damage to each of them and gaining 4 or 5 life per cards you play. It's really good in decks that draw lots of cards, so if you're playing black effects like Necropotence, or you're just playing any one of the millions of blue spells that draw you cards, Extort is really great in those strategies. Next we've got a card that almost no one knows of. Here, let me make this bigger for you guys. There we go. Debt of Loyalty. It is a 3 mana, gain control of an opponent's creature effect. There are tons of opportunities to use this. Any sort of board sweep that doesn't stop regeneration. It's 3 mana, gain control of the best creature on board. Worst case scenario, it saves one of your own creatures. This is probably the most underplayed compared to power card that I can think of in white for Commander. It's an old Weatherlight rare, so any even relatively new players would have just never seen it. I forgot that it existed. I accidentally stumbled upon it, and it probably should be in just about any white Commander deck. Next we've got Congregate. Life gain in competitive one-on-one formats usually isn't a very valid strategy, except against very aggressive decks. The reason for that is that you're wasting a spell and you're wasting time doing something that doesn't put you ahead. It just puts your opponents behind, if that makes any sense. But in Commander, Congregate is going to be huge. It's going to gain you a lot of life, and spending 1 card to gain up to 30 life definitely puts you far enough ahead of your opponents in life total that it's going to be difficult unless they all gang up on you, which they might, so keep that in mind. Make sure you've got a defense plan after a Congregate. But as long as you can defend yourself, it can give you a huge advantage. Next, I've got Endless Horizons. This is a card that a lot of people don't like playing because of the risk, which I think is very counterintuitive. This is not a card you want to play on turn 4. This is a card you want to play on turn 10. So best case scenario, you're getting an extra card every turn, even though it is just a plains. And worst case scenario, you've removed all the plains from your deck, and so your deck is super thin, and at that point in the game, you probably don't need that much more land at all. Next is Kismet, and I cannot stress enough how good this card is. I didn't even think about it. Like, I've known about the card for a long time. It used to be played with Stasis way back in the day, and I just never really connected with Commander until someone played it against me. And the fact that it makes basically anything that produces mana, lands and artifacts come into play tapped, is huge. I was so surprised at what a blowout this card can be at 4 mana. Not a lot of people packing enchantment removal. I just, over the top how powerful this card is. Definitely recommend playing it in any white deck. And we've got Conversion here, which is a screw you red card. Even though red is the least popular color in Commander, this basically just shuts a red deck down pretty hard, since most of them will be playing just mountains. Now, the one reason I can think of not to play this card is you don't want to be, a bad person. You don't want to be that guy. And I'll certainly respect that. Other than that, I think it's a really great card. We've got another really weird card from Mirage Block. It's also white and also lets you gain control of creatures. It's a pseudo removal spell that lets you gain control of most available targets. Definitely no one's heard of this one. The idea of instant white permanent creature control is just such an odd concept that no one even really thinks to check for it. But it is out there. It is Jabari's influence, and you should pick it up. Finally, we got Decree of Justice. This is probably my favorite card on the list. I was in love with this card when it came out. I have been since. The ability to make a bunch of creatures at instant speed that's uncounterable and draws you a card. It's really powerful late game. So let's move on to the blue. Start with Read the Runes here. Here's another card I really love. And the biggest benefit to this card is if your opponents are playing control effects, anything that would take control of your permanents, because you get to basically draw a free card off their control spell, make sure they don't get your creature. And the ability to just draw X cards late in the game, it doesn't matter if you discard them all, or almost all of them, because at that stage in the game, you're really looking for specific cards. So Read the Runes can actually just play as a cheaper stroke of genius. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, it can provide you a ton of card advantage. Next we've got Reigns of Power. This is one that I'm surprised not a lot of people are aware of. It used to be a really popular card when it came out. It was in one of the Commander decks. So how it's not getting played more is strange. But pretty much any time I cast it, my opponents cannot believe how powerful it is. They don't understand how you can play this 4 mana win the game card. You're playing blue, you probably don't have a lot of creatures out, so it's basically a 4 mana insurrection for one player, and no one thinks it's fair, and yet no one's playing it, which I don't really understand. Might be the best blue card on the list here. Next we've got Leyline of Anticipation. This is another one that impressed me how good it is. The ability to have all of your cards have flash, especially in blue when you're running counterspells, is enormously great. The fact that you might get to play it for free early on is huge. Turn 1 Leyline is probably one of the best plays my Zur the Enchanter deck has. Next we got Wonder, and Wonder is definitely unappreciated because people don't respect combat a lot in Commander. The more and more I play it, the more I realize that there's actually a lot of blocking going on, and having a permanent form of evasion can be pretty great. Next is Frozen Aether. This is, as you can tell, exactly the same as Kismet, just a blue version. It was one of the modern shifted cards, whatever you want to call them, from Planar Chaos. Everything I have to say about this is the same thing I had to say about Kismet. Freakishly powerful, definitely recommend. Wipe Away, you're going to notice a trend from these videos about the ability Split Second. One of the best abilities in Commander, simply because no one ever plays around it. Even if you've, gotten your buddies 10 times with it, the 11th time you're still going to get them. And they're going to hate it, and you're going to love it. So Split Second spells that have an effect on the board are all great. Wipe Away is definitely in that category. It would be pretty much an auto-include in most of my blue decks. Next, we got Quiet Speculation. This is a card that is dramatically undervalued, and the reason for that is Demonic Tutor is one of the best cards in Commander, and this lets you get 3 cards for 2 mana. Obviously, the cards are limited, but if you're playing a 3-color deck, blue, white, black is the best place for this. You know, you've probably got about 12 potential cards you could be getting, and so basically what it is 2 mana, draw 3 pretty good cards. And if you stop to think about that, you realize how powerful that can be. What I'll normally do with Quiet Speculation is get a Deep Analysis, Forbidden Alchemy, and a Lingering Souls. So I got some early aggression. I've got a bunch of card draw that will last me later. But anything with flashback is a great target for this. There's a lot of token generators in green you can get with it. That would also be good in there. Next we've got Mana Severance, which used to be a really powerful card in Extended if you combine it with Goblin Charbelcher. But Charbelchering aside, just, same deal with Endless Horizons. When you get to the late stage of the game, you just don't want to be drawing lands anymore. So you cast Mana Severance, get all the lands out of your deck, and the rest of your draws are immensely better. Next we've got Compulsion, which is another card that I run in my Quiet Speculation deck. Just the ability to cycle through all your useless cards late game and get 1 extra card off of it is a really powerful late game effect. And even on the early game, it can help you get out of Mana Screw. If you're not drawing that 4th land, this can help you dig for it. Finally, for blue, we've got High Tide, which is a immensely powerful card in Legacy, but doesn't see a lot of play in Commander, and it's really great for effects like Stroke of Genius or the aforementioned Read the Runes, Brain Geyser, any X effect. And sometimes just the ability to double your mana is great. It gives you the ability to counter multiple spells in a turn, or play a card draw spell and a counter. So the problem with High Tide is it doesn't automatically affect anything by itself, so I think that's why a lot of people don't use it. But when it does have an effect, it's huge. So for that reason, I think it's really great. Meosion of Night's Reach, the only justification anyone could ever give me for not playing this in a black deck is because they don't want to be a jerk. The fact that it discards all your opponent's hands, and you can do it at instant speed, is enormous. There's just no practical reason not to play this card. It should be one of the first few cards in every black deck. It's huge. Yawgmoth's Agenda. This is the least well-known of the cards with Yawgmoth in its name. But even though this one is not one of the ones banned in Legacy, it's still a pretty good card. You're basically getting an extra spell for free, and it's sort of like an extra tutor every turn. So, being able to cast free pseudo-demonic tutor once a turn is obviously a very powerful effect. We've got Necrogelia. Speaking of cards like Yawgmoth's Bargain, that would be a very popular effect in Commander if it were legal. Necropotence is really popular, and this card does a similar effect at uncommon. It says it's instant speed, it's got a very limited cast window, but it's very similar. My only problem with it is that the additional cost is paying a life, so if it gets countered, you still lose that life. Other than that, though, it's another really powerful draw effect for black. Now we've got a few cards that I've lumped together. We've got Beacon of Unrest, we've got Necromancy, Animate Dead, and Dance of the Dead. Basically what these do is they not only allow you to bring back your own creatures, but you get your opponent's creatures back as well. And if you're playing Commander, you're playing with 5 people, you got to imagine that they've all got at least some decent big creatures that you can take from them in the late game. So basically, you're allowing yourself to play with your opponent's deck. And next, we've got Temporal Extortion, which is basically a black time warp, because it's very rare that anyone will pay the extra life, because everyone's going to want someone else to do it, and eventually they'll just decide on, screw it, let's give them the extra turn. And an extra turn at any stage in the game can be really huge for you. Next off with Filth, which basically lies in the same camp as Wonder. Gives you late game evasion. Normally slightly more limited because in a 4-person game, it's probably only getting you past 1, maybe 2 people. However, if you run Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, it actually just makes all your creatures unblockable, so that's pretty cool. Sudden Death, again, we're going back to Split Second. This is my second favorite Split Second spell in Commander. We're going to get to my favorite in the next video. But there are a lot of utility creatures that your opponent doesn't want to die, and again, they're not going to play around this. You're just going to get them, and it's going to feel so nice. Next, we've got another spot removal spell in Hero's Downfall. I don't know why single removal spells have not caught on in black. They obviously have in white. Everyone's playing Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, stuff like that. But no one's playing any of the black removal. And so any of them are fine. I think all Commander decks should have a few spot removal spells. Doomblade, Murder, Go for the Throat. Any of them are valid. So if you don't want to end up picking up a rare, just want some commons for your deck, those are fine too. Hero's Downfall is probably the best just because it can kill anything at instant speed and it can kill planeswalkers. So that's pretty huge. Got Thoughtseize here. This is another really underrated effect in Commander, is single card discard. There's rarely a point in the game where my opponent will have at least one card in hand that I don't want to Thoughtseize them. Early on, it can get people really hard. Some people will keep a hand just because it's got a certain cards. I've kept a hand just because it had Soul Ring. If I had lost that Soul Ring, probably would have lost that game. Late game, if they've got one card left, there's a good chance it's a big one. Getting it's great. And someone in the game is always going to have a powerful spell to take with Thoughtseize. Finally, we've got Entome. And Entome, this kind of comes with an asterisk because there are certain decks that love to play it. Everyone puts it in their Reanimator deck for obvious good reason. But anyone I suggest it to that isn't playing a Reanimator deck just says, oh, well, I'm not playing Reanimator, so what does it matter? But they're playing stuff like Eternal Witness. They're playing spells with Flashback. They're playing stuff with Regrowth. They're playing against people with Living Death and Exhume. And there's so many ways to abuse it. There's so often that it's a 1 mana instant speed tutor, which is why it was banned in Legacy for so long. Really potent effect, really suggested. It's very versatile. So that's all for this week. I'm going to be going through the rest of the colors through artifacts and lands next week, so I hope you tune in for that as well. I think this video is very beneficial. I think everyone needs to sort of think outside the box, not just keep playing the same staples in Commander. 1, for strategy, and 2, for fun. So I hope this video provided you with some strategy and fun. I hope the next one will too. Thanks for coming out, guys. I'll see you next time.